It's also about fear, right? Like the leaders today, like if you're attached to something, anything, attached to your role, to your position, to your salary, to your status, to the power that this role gives you, then all of that fear and attachments is in the way of the success of your team and your organization. So you have to do your own work. You have to look inside of yourself and let go of these fears, let go of these attachments in service of everybody's success, including you. Like in my case, I'm the largest shareholder in the business. So it's in my best interest too to step aside from the day-to-day operation and bring the experts to take this company and the team to the next level.
Tony, welcome to the Future Work Podcast. We're really excited to have you here today. And gosh, from our conversation of the other day, I'm really excited. All of our communications systems in discussion we had, HR systems discussion we had, and remote. That's pretty cool too. So, Tony, what do you think? If I can get right into it, what do you think is the most underestimated future of work trend that's happening today? The thing that you think no one's paying attention to, but will really impact us all?
Look, Frank, it's hard not to mention AI, and I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about AI in this
Yeah,
show.
elephant in the room.
However, there's something underneath AI that is quietly happening that is really important for you humans on this planet and the planet itself, which is distribution of workers on the planet.
Agreed.
And that was unlocked by remote work, by the pandemic, when organizations realized that they don't have to hire people only in 20 miles radius from where they have offices. And and there have been a lot of economical literature about this. So let me give you the example of Brian Kaplan, the economist from George Mason University. He argues in his book, Open Borders, that if you remove the concept of borders from talent mobility, you can triple the world GDP, right? So today we see a lot in the news, all the various way we are trying to create economical growth, overutilizing planet resources, but actually the solution is right there. It's about distributing work on the planet and giving people, especially in emerging economies, the opportunity to grow their professional career, to grow their economical output. And that is the biggest underlying trend that I see happening in the last few years. And it's a very good news for the planet and for the people.
Well, um, when you say you make a bold statement like triple or quadruple the global GDP, the reason that a lot of companies historically have gone offshore, that was the first phase, right? Call centers, processing centers, et cetera, was to lower their operating costs with a more efficient, a more cost-effective workforce.
Yeah.
So, in order to triple the GDP, do we still look for economic efficiency by relocating workforces or choosing offshore workforces out of the primary economies, U.S., Western Europe, et cetera? Um, and if we do we have to? Do we still get the economic benefit of the lower cost in those economies? And if we do, will that still triple the GDP? I guess
Great.
that's
Yeah.
I'm having trouble with the math. I'm saying, well, if I hire somebody offshore because they cost less, candidly, um, am I just taking money out of one economy and putting it into another, which has been a complaint by government and by different factions? Um, and if I pay the same there to raise that GDP, am I? Is there any reason in doing it?
These are all great questions, Frank, and let me put some light on these questions. So first, according to BCG, there's over 100 million knowledge worker jobs in the West that are going unfulfilled. Increasingly, AI is creating even a bigger talent shortage in these high talent jobs in the West. And that has a huge impact on the growth of businesses that are located in the West. But they cannot find the right people. They cannot find enough people to fulfill the.
I
Yeah.
agree with that completely. We see the same thing ourselves.
So just by fulfilling that gap and going elsewhere to find that gap, specifically in emerging economies where there's 1 billion knowledge workers coming into the workforce in the next 10 years, they're going to be AI literate
Mm-hmm.
workers.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
You're going to have a massive economical contribution to Western world economies. But at the same time, you are going to increase the salaries of these people in these countries because suddenly now they are not doing what you used to outsource low talent type of jobs to these countries, right? You're not outsourcing data entry anymore. AI is taking care of that. So with this technology, you have the opportunity to elevate human talent in emerging economies to participate in the global economy. And that's what's going to lead to the massive growth I'm talking about.
Okay. If Yeah, I'm going to argue a little bit, or create some argumentative points.
Yep.
I hope are positive. The use of AI increases exponentially our efficiency as knowledge workers. We would all agree that,
Yes.
or has the
Yep.
potential to. If in the next period of years we're going to have up to 1 billion knowledge workers, isn't AI going to, because of the efficiency of those knowledge workers, reduce the need for that number, so to speak? Are we going to need more mechanics to fix robots, maybe using AI, than we are going to need knowledge workers?
Yeah. The type of work will have to adapt and change for sure. But there's a view of that. Another point of view is that growth expectation will increase with AI, right? Whatever productivity output you expect from workers now is going to be increased.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily having less workers. It's about reshifting what growth we expect from businesses, and it's going to be higher expectation.
Okay.
So that's what's going to shift. Today, I believe that as we shift growth expectation, also company valuation will shift as well. Investors will expect higher
Well,
growth, more profitability from companies for similar type of valuation.
yeah, um, not just should there be some level of increased growth, but the margins and the profitability of the companies should change as well, and the standards for, is a 5% coupon good anymore, or not? And we just say no, not anymore. That's going to change. When we went through the Industrial Revolution, when the humankind went through that,
Yep.
people moved out of the country and into the cities. Uh, in the cities, into the factories, and the factories took raw materials and created goods that were able to have their costs lowered and reshipped around the world, so that people that hadn't been able to access those goods cost effectively in the past were able to do so. And that created not just a societal shift, but a major economic shift.
Yep.
Okay. What new products will knowledge workers create that can't be accessed today and create on a value base, a reduced cost base, so to speak, that will allow that same type of shift to occur? What new things, or do you think we'll see, that this billion knowledge worker base, growing every year to that point, will actually create, that are going to materially change the way we live, in the same way that the Industrial Revolution did with transportation and iron goods and weaving and all the things that machinery brought?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think our needs as human is going to shift as well. Like, our basic needs are going to be increasingly provided for from this industrial or post-industrial AI-capable machine. We're going to have more goods, cheaper goods, available for humans on the planet, and therefore our needs will have to evolve as well into higher level needs, right? Think about the needs to create, the needs to take care of yourself, take care of your body, take care of your life, take care of your environment, take care of your community. I think the world is going to shift into more distribution. Now we don't need to be in cities anymore in the same way we used to need before with industrial revolution. So there's no need to concentrate people in urban areas anymore to create the economical output that we need. So the needs of humanity is going to shift, and it's going to be more sustainable, more about self-connection, more about healthy healthy way of living, sustainable way of living. And there's a lot we can do to drive that future.
Well, yeah, what I think you're saying, I could be not interpreting this right, but I think you're saying is that a lot of us goods will be available. They'll be available on a more cost-effective basis for a greater number of people. So a lot of us, and we're seeing some of this shift today, I think, will exchange more goods, my ability to get more stuff, for more time. And hopefully we'll use that time productively as opposed to in terms of self-improvement, societal improvement, things of that nature. I mean, that's a big leap, though. It's never happened before. That doesn't mean it won't happen. In fact, things that have never happened before happen every day, and thank goodness, that's the human growth overall. But do you really think we'll gain more time, or we'll just try and get more stuff? And if we,
Yeah,
how much do we need? You know?
I think you're already answering the question in the way you're asking the question, because yes, you're right. Like we don't need more stuff. Like this consumerism culture that we created as a result of this massive industrialization has led us to becoming unhealthy and relate in an unhealthy way to ourselves and to the planet. People are awakening right now that there's need to be another way of living our life, and it's not necessarily around materialistic consumerism. And that what actually needs to happen. Like the other alternative, which is to continue on this infinite utilization of natural resources, degradation of our environment, degradation of our health, is not going to be sustainable in the long term. So at some point, I don't know when, there's going to be this global shift towards more less stuff and more sustainability and more living in harmony with our natural environment.
Well, Oyster is an amazing global platform of HR management, talent management, et cetera. It's an amazing platform, I think. And that's not a pitch. I think it's an amazing damn platform. Um, do you think Gen Z, the shift we're seeing in Gen Z, I don't need a car, I don't want to own a home, but I want experiences. Do you think that Gen Z is the first generation that is starting to move away from stuff and want more time? And if so, it's a little setup here. If so, how does that impact the way we look at jobs? How does that look at the way we create the structure of a company that's able to achieve all of this GDP increase?
Yeah, I think first uh, that question that you're asking is framed with the assumption that we have to have infinite growth, right? So maybe
We're having population decline in a lot of countries right now too, so that's
yeah,
another issue to consider.
but we still have our politicians, our leaders are expecting a continuous infinite growth so that they can
Correct.
print more money and to keep attaching to the power that they have, right? So there's a problem there. This assumption of we need to have infinite growth is not something that is natural. It's something we created. It's actually an illusion. Today, when you go look at how indigenous population are living, they don't even know what capitalism is. and they're living in harmony and connection with their natural environment, and they have much less mental health issues. They are happier. So is the goal of humanity is to produce stuff and continue to grow the GDP, or the purpose of humanity is to be happy and healthy and positive relationship to your environment? So that's what I think the shift need to happen is in consciousness and why we work. And at Oyster, talk about Oyster. Oyster, we created this business that is more like a movement disguised in a business. We
I
are
agree.
making,
I agree. Globalization of labor,
yeah,
remote. Yes, I agree.
we are making planet Earth one employment market. So a talented individual in Lagos, Nigeria, doesn't feel that they are less than somebody in Paris in terms of their ability to contribute and have opportunity in this world,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So we brought people from all over the world to work on something meaningful that is about awakening humanity to the fact that we can all have dignity and opportunity to participate in the global economy. I think this is the kind of companies that are needed in the future, companies that are um, shifting a consciousness to a more aligned with life and away from the the infinite growth illusion that is hurting us and hurting our planet.
Well, all of that takes capital. All management of the whole process takes capital. Do you think investors are institutional investors, especially, are willing to buy off on that and say, we'll be the first to move away from an infinite growth model and a return on investment model and start talking about social capital and environmental capital? How are we going to spend? How are we going to raise money to do that?
Yeah,
Um,
it's a great question.
Markets will support
Uh,
this theory, so to speak. Globalization of
yeah,
employment, absolutely. Technology knows no borders. We agree on that completely.
yeah,
In fact, you mentioned hiring somebody in Lagos. We hired somebody in Nairobi the other day. And why? They were the best person for the job.
yes,
It didn't matter to us where they were. The hours didn't matter because the job is a marketing job and it can be flexible in that regard. We just hired the best person we could find. And that's, I think, a characteristic a lot of mid-sized companies like ours, yours is a larger company, ours is a mid-sized company, are embracing. I just want the best. I don't care where they are. Our own C-level team is in five different cities, four different
yes,
cities, excuse me. And we don't think anything about it. We actually enjoy not seeing each other for lunch every day. Uh, you get tired of the same old jokes. So, there is some benefit to having people remote, even at a C level, at a leadership level, because you become more
yes.
independent in your thinking,
Mm.
and things habits don't form that become tiring. Everything is inspirational. Um, so back to my question, who's institutionally, from a capital point of view, to support this vision, which I think is valid, how is that going to be supported? It can't be supported by government because government can't tax hire to do it, or it's robbing its own people. Governments, I always look at governments as if they're corporations. And let's use the US and China as two corporations, call them Microsoft and Google for a minute. Um, all governments are really just looking to increase their market share in some way, in my view, and the profitability of their society as a result of the increased market share. So how they do that sometimes is not real business-like and not real nice, but that's ultimately what it comes down to. And you
Yes,
go back to, I don't know, millennium. Uh, you go back thousands of years, and you could say, what was Alexander the Great all about? Increasing his market share. So this is a pretty historic thing. So do you think capital will be available for the change such as you're suggesting, and how so?
I don't think in the immediate term. I think that the incentives are designed today of the system in opposition of that vision. But that system is actually not sustainable, right? You cannot continue to increase your market share at the expense of others and the planet. So at some point, you're gonna hurt an obstacle, and that obstacle can be uh, will lead you to rethink these incentives. And you can argue this is what happened in Europe after World War II, right? Today, Europe growth expectation are lower than other countries, right?
Mhm.
Other great economies. So, but people here in Europe they live healthier than other places, and
Mhm.
they have, although it's not perfect, they preserve their environment more than others. So I think there need to be a shock to the system. There need to be a challenge that the system will face until it readjusts its incentives to lower its growth expectations.
Shock. I like that comment. How would you shock it? What would you do to shock that system into recognition? Does it take what type of cataclysmic or um, event or epiphany, global epiphany, if there could be such a thing, an awakening, if you
Mm.
will, event, would cause that shock to have enough impact to make the change?
I think you don't need to do anything. I think it's happening for the system itself right now, right? So uh, the system itself has become unhealthy to itself. So you see it today, right? In geopolitical tension, economical shocks, higher level of volatility in the markets. Um, you see it uh, in uh, in the increasing levels of nationalism and increasing level of protectionism. All these things are signs that the system is afraid and is actually need a reset and
Well, I agree with that. I think we're in a period of what I call withdrawal, n that we're all backing into our comfort zones and putting a wall around ourselves or our philosophies in some way, which is the antithesis of what we want for global remote work. But
yes.
work transcends oftentimes professionalism transcends a lot of politics too, so, there's a middle ground there. But that's not a shock. This is the antithesis of a shock that we're going through. We're withdrawing into ourselves more than booming out to
Mm.
something that's gonna cause material change, unless it happens to be, unfortunately, something like a war, which is a shock whose change has never really proven to be productive.
Well, actually, it could be that kind of they are micro shocks, right? They're not like a big shock, right? So there's these kind of steps, small steps that are leading towards this global awakening. And today you see it in business, right? I mean, when we saw that in the U.S. there's higher degree of immigration barriers with what happened with the H-1B restrictions. So we see businesses in the U.S. diversifying their sources of talent and hiring more abroad, right? They still have.
The change in the visa process, all that did was, increase efficiencies and send money overseas. Uh,
Mhm.
that's all that did in my view. Not necessarily good or bad, but you could see the immediate outcome in the change in the hiring policies. You certainly would see that, and we
Yes.
to recognize it as well. So I kind of chuckled at that whole process overall. What do you think corporate leaders need to do today to deal with this micro shock or to contribute to this process in a way that still sustains their capacity to support their shareholders, their capital base? Because if that erodes, then the company erodes.
Yep.
We know that overall. So, what should leadership do today? And I'm an old leader, maybe good or bad or ugly, I don't know what. When should leaders say their style is no longer the style that's right? Back down and take a different role in today's marketplace. You've done that. I've changed my role a little bit.
Mm.
I know some other people are doing the same thing. Uh, is there a time, or is it just an individual? It's time for me, and it's time for me now. Is there enough of a change in leadership needs that this should be a wholesale of activity as opposed to a when I feel like it activity.
Yeah, in my case, I just shifted from being the founder and CEO to being the founder and executive chairman, and I brought in a new CEO in the business that is better fit for this next stage. But to get to that place, I had to constantly be looking at, okay, what the organization needs from me. Ask myself that question all the time, and reflect. Do I still have the skills, the strength, the capabilities that this company need from me? And if the answer is no in the future, it needs a different kind of leader, then because the leader is at service of the organization, therefore it becomes in their best interest and in the organization best interest to raise their hand and start the transition process. And this is exactly what I did in service of the growth of the company, because um, I don't have the experience to take the company to $10 billion market cap, but I know people who can.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I like your comment that you're in service to the company. That's a great belief of my own, is that our purpose is to serve and work on behalf of the company, but the company's purpose is to serve and work on behalf of its clients. Um, uh, so I think that service mentality is an important part, and I will say achieved only when you have a certain when you've achieved certain objectives, and then it becomes a different type of business maturity.
Yeah.
The
And it's
service.
also about fear, right? Like the leaders today, like if you're attached to something, anything, attached to your role, to your position, to your salary, to your status, to the power that this role gives you, then all of that fear and attachments is in the way of the success of your team and your organization. So you have to do your own work. You have to look inside of yourself and let go of these fears, let go of these attachments in service of everybody's success, including you. Like in my case, I'm the largest shareholder in the business. So it's in my best interest too to step aside from the day-to-day operation and bring the experts to take this company and the team to the next level.
Yeah, well, honestly, it'd be my wife's benefit if I stepped aside. She thinks I work too much, and she's probably right. But if you love it, it the thing I always say is, did Picasso ever stop painting? Did Beethoven ever stop writing music? If you look at business, not that you're as great or as they were, but if you look at business as somewhat of an enjoyable art form,
Mm,
creativity,
it is.
we should never stop producing.
Mm.
Never stop producing. It's just, oh, how are we most efficient at it?
Yeah.
Rolling back to remote work and moving offshore with people. How do companies that haven't embraced that, a small company, a company with 10 employees, we say today that two things. First, in terms of office space, there's no such thing as occupiers anymore. There are only travelers because
Mm.
you're working from a non-office environment. I'm working from a non-office environment. Today, I've got another meeting later where I will be in the middle of an office environment. It's the end of your day, so you probably won't. But we work in a variety of places, so we're traveling all the time between environments. Um, we also think in terms of the best person, but how do you create a structure? How does a company today, a small person company today, because everybody has an international client and an international supplier.
Mm.
So why shouldn't we have half our team be distributed as well? Or maybe all of our team, maybe be a complete remote first team. How do you prepare for that in your education, in your planning, in your capital requirements as you grow? What's the preparation necessary?
Yeah. So it starts with the intention of the leader of the organization or of the team, right? So they need to believe at the core that by moving into a remote work model that is distributed is actually good for the business and good for them, right? I mean, for me, I was able to go live in the East Mediterranean. I live in the island of Cyprus. I live near the sea. I have great quality of life here, but I can still lead a unicorn company from anywhere in the world. This gave me freedom. So for me, I did it first for myself. But then I realized actually it's not only me that needed the freedom. We all need freedom. And but it cannot be at the expense of loss of productivity or loss of collaboration. So therefore, it becomes a necessity to design a, a work system, a work operating system that actually can make people successful no matter where they are. So the core of that system is what we call asynchronous way of communication and collaboration. Like this person you hired in a, was it which country? In Africa? In Kenya. That works in marketing, they don't need to be on calls 10 hours a day, right? 80% of the work they do is
Hopefully they're
asynchronous,
not.
right?
Hopefully they're not. Let me
Yeah.
um, we actually find that the people that are the most remote, and because of the timing of convenience, attend fewer meetings, are more productive.
Yes.
I don't know what your outcome
Same.
is, but it's meetings are the killer of productivity, and I don't think any of us have fully conquered that challenge yet. But we do find there's a difference in productivity. The other thing we find is there's a difference in decision making. You When someone's remote and you can't see them every moment, you're forced, when you give them a responsibility, to give them the individual authority to execute the decisions to fulfill that responsibility. So even if it's the same layer of position that you might have at your home office, the decision-making process is improved by the remote worker versus the in-house worker. We see that characteristic too, of less asking for permission and more action. Sometimes mistakes, always mistakes, but mistakes are generally easy to correct. What you can't correct is moving slow because nobody makes decisions.
I mean, this is where we have to believe in humans' capacity to collaborate at mass scale together, right? I mean, what makes humans unique compared to other living beings on this planet is that we have this ability to collaborate at, millions of people together. Think about open source software. And we started this, I would say, mass scale collaboration with industrial revolution, right? We it's like everybody has to go to this place called the factory to work. And then when information technology came, well, we moved everybody to the office.
Mhm.
But actually, now with
Factory.
it's another type of factory.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now we can collaborate. We have all the technology available to us, and now with AI, is even more amazing to collaborate in a distributed way. We can trust humanity's capability to redesign how we're going to collaborate in a way that makes opportunity available on every coordinate on the planet Earth. We don't need to be in the same place anymore.
I want to ask you one last question. If you and I were to have this same conversation 5 years from now, asking maybe the same questions or whatever new questions we think would come up, what do you think would be different? What do you think would surprise us or will change so that we have to address that present versus our current present?
I think in 5 years, working with AI is going to enable us to realize that work is, in 5 years, we would have forgotten that we used to go to the office to work. In 5 years, the ability to collaborate with other humans augmented with AI is going to demonstrate with us that actually anyone on the planet can create massive value without the need for them to be physically present in any location. And that's going to be like an absolute truth. Like we're not going to have to question it in 5 years from now.
Okay, I got to throw one more in then. I got to throw one more in. Let's assume, when you say we're going to forget we had to go to the office to work, does that mean we're all going to be working remotely from a non-office environment, or we're going to be working remotely from distributed office environments?
We're going to working remotely in a distributed way of working, whether you are in the office or not, right? So the concept of office will become optional.
Okay. I'm going to throw a monkey into a wrench here and into the thing. Let's assume that over the next 5 years, 40% of all commercial office occupancy disappears.
Yes.
That will bankrupt 100% of all commercial property companies who are
Yes.
supported by institutionally by every major institutional investment organization, banks in particular, and
Yep.
insurance companies, and it will also bankrupt them and create a complete collapse of global economies.
We discussed on this podcast that we need some shock to the system. And I think this is
Oh,
one of the
that's
micro.
yeah. No,
This is
I'm just saying what there unintended consequences of good things sometimes happen. So I'm trying to think through if that happens, will the companies that have embraced this still be able to succeed without the capital basis of the financial institutions that have been shocked through their own activity take place? We need to have another conversation. We need to have another conversation. Let's leave it at the question mark. Let's leave
Yes.
it at the question mark, and maybe come up with a follow-up interview article or another conversation next month when we've really thought about this a little bit more. Because I think there's so much here to unpack. There's so much here to unpack, Tony.
Yeah, we live in a period of accelerating change. I'm really excited about what's coming. Finally.
I am too. I've been in business for 57 years now. And the changes in my first office, my first commercial office that we built that was a flexible workplace, we had a telex for crying out loud. The fax was like amazing. Okay, so I've had the ability to live through the zero technology to AI generation. I'm one of those, and
Wow.
always embraced it, always loved it. We took first planes I was on were all prop planes. There were no jets. I mean, all this change that's occurred is just
Wow.
just fabulous overall. And when you look into the future, you can't you should drag what you learned in the past with you,
Yeah,
but not the past itself.
I love that.
So let's do this again. If you're up for it, let's do this again
Yes,
in a while and really explore this because your platform is, I think, like I said earlier, I think it's amazing. It is totally
it's
structured
amazing.
to support global employment in every way possible, and it's all. I mean, it's proven to be very very successful as a company. But the way it's structured is a leading edge change structure that allows companies to do everything we're talking about, candidly, with more ease than just hiring at home oftentimes. So, anyway, I want to thank you hugely. Wish you all the luck in the world and a nice day at the beach tomorrow in Cyprus. I'm jealous. And look forward to the next time.
Thank you for having me, Frank.
Take care, buddy. Bye bye.
If it's impacting the future of work, it's in the Future of Work podcast by allwork.space.